Hi, I'm Kyle with DIY Auto Homeschool, and we're here today with a 2007 Ford 500 with a 3-liter V6, and we're going to be looking at a complaint of no AC. Now, I have already looked at this some, and we're kind of stepping into a little bit late, but I will walk you through the very quick, easy steps that I've already taken to get to where we're at, and we'll talk about what's going to have to be done to this vehicle. So, this vehicle, what I was told happened to it before I got a hold of it was a few years ago the compressor had been replaced, just a little bit of history on it, and the vehicle stopped blowing cold air conditioning stopped cooling, and then they took it to a shop, and that shop charged the system, and it very shortly after that stopped cooling again, so they took it back to that shop, and that shop simply charged the system again. I believe they said that there was something loose, they tightened up something and then charged the system, and very shortly after that again it was no longer cooling again. So that's when I ended up getting to take a look at it. So the first thing I found when I went and looked at it was that the compressor and the line coming off of the compressor was just covered in oil, AC oil. You could see the dye where it all leaked out. So the thing to remember is it may not be much, but we may have to add a little bit of oil to this system when we do work on it, depending on what needs to be replaced, just to replace the little bit of oil that has already leaked out. So looked at it and I saw that it was leaking pretty bad. So the next step I took, which was actually the next day, second day that I'd looked at it, was I cleaned off everything. I sprayed off the compressor, I sprayed off that line. I was just certain that line was leaking at some point, but I wanted to verify what was and wasn't leaking, because there was concern that the compressor may be leaking as well. So I was able to tell when I first looked at it that around the front of the compressor, where the shaft seal is at behind the clutch, it looked completely clean, completely dry, and there was no reason to believe that the shaft seal was leaking. But that doesn't mean that the body of the seals on the body of the compressor weren't leaking. So I wanted to clean off the compressor, clean off the lines that came off of the compressor, and let it run for a little bit and see if I could see anything start to leaking. With as quickly as this was losing refrigerant, I was confident that I'd be able to seal whatever the main leak was fairly quickly. In some cases where you have refrigerant that's lost over the course of a couple months or even once a year, then sometimes you'll have to let the customer drive the vehicle for 2 weeks before you can take a look and actually see where it's leaking at. But in this case, we were able to just simply let it run for a few minutes, and then we were able to see where it's leaking at. So what I'm going to show you now is after I cleaned off the dye and the refrigerant and sprayed it all off, I'm going to show you where it started leaking and what we found when we looked at that. Okay, so just for reference, I'm going to show you where you look at to see the compressor on this. If you look right down here, that right there is the compressor and the lines that go into it, and you can already start to see where it's leaking at right there on the line. But I'm going to show you with the black light what this looks like, so you can see exactly where it's leaking at. Okay, so you can see right there along the top of that line, and it's harder to tell, but it's also down there at the back side of it. Let me see if I can shift that light a little. But the top of the line is the worst spot that it's leaking, and I want to see if I can show you this here. As you can see, even just like this with the black light on it, you can see where the refrigerant has been leaking out and leaving the traces of dye, and this was completely cleaned off, sprayed off and cleaned off before I started to run this. So definitely right there, that line is leaking, and that's what's going to have to be replaced. And when I when I did this, I found no traces of any leaking on the compressor body. So I don't think there's any issues with the compressor. We're going to have to replace this line, and then we'll get the system vacuumed down and filled back up afterwards, and we will verify that this repair works and it no longer leaks. Okay, so we had a little bit of a parts delay on the line for this vehicle, but we got the line in just now, and I've got the vehicle about ready to put that line in. So what I've done so far, and I'm sorry I didn't walk through it on camera, just jacked the front of the vehicle up and supported it with jack stands. I took this wheel off, and we're going to take this little cover off right there, and I'll walk through that on camera so you can see how we're going to get to the line, and it's going to be pretty simple to get this line out and the new one in. So let's go ahead and get started on that. Okay, so we're not on the tripod right now. These are just plastic retainers, and they're not that hard to deal with most of the time. You run into issues every now and then, and I'm not going to be able to do this holding the camera, but you just basically unscrew this center portion, and it will sometimes be reluctant, but it backs itself out from the outside edge. Oh, sorry, we're going the wrong. You kind of see it starting to move there. Sometimes you have to hold the outside edge with your hand while you move it very gently. Any forward pressure is going to push that thing back in there. So be careful, but these usually come out fairly easily. You may run into one you have a problem, but and then these over here, I'll show you in just a second how we get those out. These here are just slide-in clips. Let me see. They just push in, and what I'm going to use to remove them is just a pair of pliers that's designed to take them out. So let me see. You just make sure I'm on here. Slide back there, and it pushes it out. And you do that on all of these. I'm gonna have to put the camera down because I can't do this one-handed. But yes, take out that clip, those clips, the one right there. Actually, I actually took that one out, and then there's two down, missing one down there. And then that'll come out, and that'll help give us access to the hose. And just like that. One more quick one that I had forgot to mention. This one right here, we're going to pull it out because to get some of this access, we're going to pull back on this and kind of get behind it. So we're going to pull this one out so that we can get the movement out of this that we need to get to the line behind it. And it pulls out just like the other ones. Okay, so under the vehicle, there's the wheel well, just so you can kind of see where we're at. This is the line we're going to be replacing. It is the one that we could see up from top. It goes to the compressor, and then it comes up here, and it bolts into the condenser. And up on top, it actually goes back. It's also the low side line. So we're going to open it up right here where it goes to the condenser, and then up top it's already empty of refrigerant, so make sure that if you're doing this work that you absolutely have it empty of refrigerant before you crack these lines open. You can seriously injure yourself with refrigerant coming out under high pressure like that. So I'll grab a ratchet or whatever it's going to take. Looks like a 13, and we'll get this line loosened up here. Okay, so got a ratchet and extension here, and I'm pretty sure, like I said, it's a 13. And we're just gonna break this loose. Now, you may hear a small noise. Sometimes once these have had the refrigerant pulled out of them, they still have just a little bit of noise to be made. Sometimes if there's a vacuum still in the system, you'll hear it make a noise as it sucks in, but this leak was bad enough, I don't even know if the system could have held vacuum. So we'll find out. And what's not a bad idea, just in case, on these is to, this is much more difficult to do one-handed, sorry. Back the nut out to where it's still on there, and then break the seal. Let me see if I can switch hands and do this any better. Because I can feel that seal's broken now. That way, even if there was still pressure in here somehow or something happened, it's not going to throw that line completely out because it'll get stopped by the nut. But we got that off. It looks like we're losing a little bit of oil. And we're going to go back up top and we're going to look at the other two connections we have to take off to get this line out. Okay, now as you can maybe tell, obviously we've got that bolt right there on the line that needs to come off. It's a 10mm head, but that comes over here. Let me move the light, and it comes to this connection right here. So we're gonna have to pull this off in order to remove the hose as well as the one at the compressor. So let's go ahead and get that done. So we know that's loose. It's not going to come flying off. Sorry, I'm just spinning this nut off. I'm blocking the view. My apologies. Alright, that nut's off. Let's go over to the other one. Okay. Let's try to get down on this one. And we'll do the same thing with this. Sorry, I don't think it's focusing where I want it to. We'll loosen that up to where it's still threaded in there. And then we'll come and lift up on it. Yep, we're good. So now we can take this out. And grab ourselves a bolt. Now that line should be free and able to come out. Let's go try to do that. Sorry, I kind of lied to you. One more thing we got to do. This is the pressure switch, or pressure sensor on that line, and we're going to have to unplug that before we can pull the line out. And we'll have to move that switch over to the new line. So let me go ahead and see if I can reach down there and unplug it. Yes, it's... Oh, sorry, I'm not even looking at it. One second, let me switch hands. Okay, small little backtrack. I went ahead and put that bolt back in and ran it down just kind of hand tight, just so that that line stays in place when I reach in here and try to do this. And unfortunately, I don't know if I'm going to have much luck getting it on film because... Oh, I think I got it. This is being a pain in the butt. Oh, okay, there we go. Alright, so you can see it's unplugged. You're going to have to make sure that weather stripping, or the weather seal, to get that pulled out and put back in there so that it keeps that sealed off. Let's go ahead and get this line out of here. Okay, as you can see, we've got the bolt pulled back out, and this line should just come up and off. And we've disconnected, let me show you over here if I can get my light unhooked. We've disconnected this, just pulled this line up and off so it's free. of the line there, and we're going to go underneath and get the rest. Okay, so here's the line we disconnected underneath. You can see it goes up and connects to the one we just took off up top. And we're going to see if we can just kind of snake this line out, or we actually, you know what, we may just go take this up out the top. Let's go do that. Okay, so if I'm being honest, I think I misjudged what I was going to have to do to get this off, but that's okay, it happens. It looks like I just flat out do not have the room to get that line out. So what I'm going to have to do is pull this coolant hose away from the cooling fan. I've already unplugged this over here. You can see, looking at what I was going to have to do. I'm going to have to pull this cooling fan out. Let me try to get the camera set up so I'm not trying to hold it the whole time while I pull this off, and we'll go ahead and get this cooling fan out so we can get this hose replaced. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is this coolant hose, these same pliers that we used for the trim, we're going to come behind where they're just pushed in and clip them out of the cooling fan assembly so we don't damage it and that we can reinstall it when we need to. The next step would be, we got to unplug the cooling fan. Obviously, I already did that. You may try to pull this little hose that comes across the top just kind of up and out of the way a little bit. Trying to figure out what we're going to have to do with this wiring harness. This wiring harness, it can probably stay in place. Then the cooling fan looks like it has 2 bolts on this side and 2 bolts down on this side. I will try to see if I can get a shot of those before I go and take them out. Okay, I'm going to try to show you where this bolt is at on the cooling fan assembly. Right there on that tab. There's one there, and I don't know if I can show it or not. There'll be one down low about where that that tab is down there. And then on the other side, but back down here, there's going to be 2 more just the same on that end. I'll show you where they're at on the cooling fan when I get it out. I'm sorry, I think I didn't record all that. I had it set up to record me while I was doing it, but I found out I was wrong. This is where the bolt was at, and this is where the other bolt was at, but at the bottom it's just got these alignment tabs that slide into place, and then the bolts up here hold it in place. So it came out fairly easily. 2 bolts came out. I had to unplug the O2 sensor just to pull it up and out, but super simple, and I'll show you going back in. But let's look at that line now and see if we can get it out. Oh my goodness, I hope we can. Okay, it looks like it's going to come out. Let me just shift it around underneath so that I can get it out. Whew, way close. And our prize, it's out. Let's move over here. Okay, the thing about lines like these that are shaped very specific ways is I've worked with people who say, hey, this line's junk, trying to get it out, just bend it, twist it, yank it out, however you've got to. But the thing is, you have to know how it comes out in one piece so that the new one can go back in the same way in one piece. And that's why I don't like to try to just bend and twist and rip lines like this out. I try to make sure that I find a way it comes out the right shape all in one piece. Let me get my hands cleaned up so I don't contaminate the new part, and we'll get the new part put in. Alright, be back in a sec. Okay, so here is a huge point in AC service. These O-rings right here, it may be hard to tell in the video, but you can tell they're old, they're flattened. Don't ever reuse these. If this line comes off, you're getting new O-rings. Now, pulling them out, you can use a pick like this if you want, but if you haven't done a ton of them, I'd recommend something plastic, something that's not going to damage the metal, because if you damage that metal, just the slightest little scratch across it, a scratch you can see or feel, is enough of a scratch for R134A to leak out. So let me shift over so I can get better on here. Oh, my light's blocking it. There we go. You want to make sure that you're touching nothing, oh, there we go, but the rubber. I am really trying to do this without scratching anything. Doing it with one hand on the camera is a little different. Oh, sorry. Okay, I'm going to set the camera down or else I'm going to end up scratching this. Sorry, one second. Here's the other thing to be wary of. Those are the two O-rings that came off, and that's the package of O-rings that came with it. I don't know if you notice, but we are just straight up missing a couple. Now this is why, for those of you who work in the field, always keep your old, unused, your new O-rings. You get packets and sometimes they'll come with a bunch of O-rings. Always hang on to them because you'll run into situations like this. Okay, so it wasn't but a second for you guys, but it's been a little while. Tracking this down was hard. The O-rings that came with this line were not the correct O-rings. So I had to do a little driving. 3 or 4 different places. I finally tracked it down. These are the O-rings that I'm after. Just for reference, these are the O-rings they sent. And this is the O-ring I needed. A little bit of a difference. Apparently the dog thought so too. So, sorry this is going to be a little bit rushed. I've had this very nice lady's car way too long. She's been extremely understanding. I'm going to just try to get this put back together. Remember, anytime you put these O-rings in, you want to lubricate them with PAG oil on a 134A system. So, I'm going to do that. I'm going to try to get the camera set up for an overview of me trying to get it put back together, and we'll meet back up when this line's in. Okay, sorry, I don't know how that shot turned out overhead. I may not include it because I don't think I caught much. But sorry about skipping over that. I'll walk through it, what we did, but I really had to get this back together. That noise you can probably hear, annoyingly so, in the background is the vacuum pump. The biggest thing about these AC services is you open the system up, you've got to pull a vacuum on it. You want to pull it down as low as possible, 26, 27, 28 inches of vacuum. And you want to hold it, keep it on there for at least 30 to 45 minutes to get all of that moisture out of the system. Because you let all the air and moisture in when you open the system up. But we got the line in, all the O-rings lubricated. We use the new O-rings for everything, just to make sure that all the seals we touched are good and they're not going to have a problem. The vacuum pump's already got it down super low, like 28 inches of vacuum, so it's looking like it's gonna be good. We'll let it vacuum for a while and then we'll wrap up this. And while it's vacuuming down, I'm gonna go ahead and get the cooling fans put back in. And that's one of the points I wanted to cover was, well, two of the points. One is, if you open up your AC system to do any service whatsoever, make sure you have a vacuum pump available to suck it down and pull a vacuum on the system and get any and all of the moisture out of it when you're done. And for those of you who do work on your own, like in your driveway and that, it's well worth it to invest in one of these vacuum pumps so that you can do this work and do it properly, because you're not doing anybody any favors if you replace this component and you can't pull a vacuum on it afterwards. And once your system's together, since we're gonna have to let this pump for 45 minutes, get it bolted together and sealed as soon as you can. And as soon as you do, put the hoses on it and start pulling a vacuum on it and get the rest of the car put back together while it's doing that. Because you don't want to wait, put the whole car back together, spend 30, 45 minutes doing that, then hook up your hoses and start another 45 minutes. So just kind of learn to multitask on that. I'll catch up with you guys again after the vacuum's complete and the cooling fans are packed in. Again, sorry about skipping over a lot of the reassembly, but I really had to get this car done and back to the customer today. So I'll catch up with you guys after that. Okay, so this is filmed after the vehicle's been wrapped up, vacuumed down, leak checked, and sent on its way. I really wanted to go into detail on that with you guys, but like I said just earlier in the video, I really had to get this car back to this customer. She'd been without it for a while, and I didn't want to make her wait just any longer on it. So I know I owe you guys a good video on, you know, pulling a vacuum down, leak checking the system with vacuum, and then charging the system up. Soon as I can find a vehicle that needs an AC repair, I will get you an in-depth video. But this was just a quick walkthrough, you know, how we diagnosed where the leak was coming from, a little bit of replacing it, and give you guys a glimpse into that. And like I said, I will get you guys a better video on AC. So thank you for taking the time to watch this video. I know you probably didn't get everything you wanted out of it, but I will find a way to get you guys one. And thank you for being a part of what we're doing here on the channel. Feel free to leave a like, subscribe. Any questions you have, feel free to ask them in the comments, and I will see you guys in the next video.